All right, John, it's a pleasure to have you here today and to talk all things business analysis.
Thanks, Janice.
You're very welcome. So first thing I wanted to ask you, John, likely the most common question you get, what is business analysis?
Yes, very common question. Often misplaced though. So I'll say it's a disciplined approach for uncovering needs at different levels of enterprises, understanding, stakeholders, context, with the sole purpose of enabling change that delivers value and brings solution to whatever the context is in businesses.
Mm-hmm. And so, I talked a little bit about, or in my first question, I mentioned misconceptions. So I'm curious, in your career, being that you've been in the business analysis space for quite some time, what are some of the more common misconceptions that you hear or see surrounding what it is to be a business analyst and business analysis in general?
I think the biggest misconception has to do with the understanding of what exactly it is. So I'll give you an example. So I have a tech background. My first degree is in computer science. So for a long time, my understanding of business analysis was limited to that worldview of tech. So that is where the biggest misconception lays today. People are assuming that it is this rather than seeing it for what it fully is.
Mm-hmm. So speaking about misconceptions, you recently published an article on LinkedIn, which if anyone watching this hasn't had the chance to read, I would definitely recommend that they do. But you talked about an interesting parable, the parable of the elephant and the 7 blind men, and you talked about that in the context of business analysis. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, thanks, Jonas. So first, growing up, I read a lot. I would always read late into the night as a child. And one of the books I read was short stories, I believe it was called, by some guy called Rudyard Kipling. Mm-hmm. And he had referred to this age-long Indian parable about 7 blind men and the elephant, I think in some place called Hindustan, nice place. And the 7 blind men had heard about the elephant. They had never seen it before. And of course, they couldn't see it if they wanted to, so they had to feel. Mm-hmm. Now, when they eventually met the elephant, by feeling the elephant, they formed their understanding, their conception of what the elephant was, based on the part of the body they thought. Mm-hmm. So the guy that thought the tail said, "Oh, the elephant is like a long snake," right? Or the trunk or the tusk, different parts of the elephant, right? That was exactly what led me to that thing, to say, you know what, this applies. In the past 12 years of practicing and promoting the best practices of in this space of business analysis, I found that those identical patterns, let me say, between that parable and business analysis.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you mentioned 12 years in the space. So,
yeah.
I don't know how you feel, but I would say you're likely a veteran at this point.
I would hope so.
So I'm curious, 12 years in, how did you get started in business analysis?
Good question, Eunice. So, like I said, background in tech, right? So a bit of coding, database management, and all that. So in 2008, I was on a project with a team, some friends, and we got an agency project in Nigeria. And we had a team of so-called business analysts. We're supposed to actually do the work of ensuring stakeholder requirements were gathered and structured and translated and communicated to the right state, to the other, to the project team. Mm-hmm. But there were major gaps. So we had major stakeholder pushbacks. So I felt disappointed. And I was like, there should be a framework, some approach, some system, some structure that defines how exactly to do business analysis right. Mm-hmm. Of course, in that space, it was mostly systems analysis because it was a technical project. So I went online, I had all the right keywords, and the very first thing that popped up on Google was the International Institute of Business Analysis, which at the time was just about 5 years. And I dug into the version 2 of the Babok, started to just consume it, understand the best practices, take more learning and training myself. And that was how the journey actually has been so far.
How it began.
Yeah.
So it was a Google search.
It was a Google search.
Wow.
Thanks to Google, guys.
Yeah. So you mentioned a few things. One, the IIBA, and then Babok. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the IIBA is the foremost body today promoting the practice of business analysis as well as practitioners, right? So I believe, I can't remember her name right now. I think it was Kathleen Barrett, who was the first CEO of IIB, and a team of people came together to say, how do we standardize this practice? How do we let organizations know how important this particular practice is? It's not just something in the corner. It requires its own role and recognition. It requires best practices defined, certifications, all that, right? So the IIBA in the last 17 years has done just that, ensuring that BAs around the world in different perspectives and domains can actually agree on generic practices, right? Processes, tasks that BAs are meant to perform, competencies that we can actually adjudge BAs with or by are defined. So the IIBA has done that. As part of that mandate to ensure that practice of business analysis is established, they have also established the body of knowledge. And of course, it evolves, right? So that body of knowledge has a guide, which we call the Guide to the Business Analysis Body of Knowledge. Okay. And for short, we refer to that as the BABAC. So it's the, ultimate reference frame. It's the most consistent, most recognized reference frame for the practice of business analysis today. It is specialization agnostic as well, meaning that no matter what specialization or perspective you practice in as a BA, the BABAC is always going to be relevant for you as a reference frame.
Amazing. Okay. And so you are the founder and if I'm understanding correctly, currently the managing director of BNET Learning.
Yeah, so I'm the founder of BNET Learning.
Okay. Yes. And so tell me a little bit about BNET Learning and what it's doing in the business analysis space. So
BNET Learning was founded in 2012. The intention was not to found a company, and probably is still not. So it's not just a profit-making business. When we started the Nigerian chapter of the IIB in 2009, a couple of us young guys, we had an understanding that we needed to be very proactive in promoting the best practices that we had embraced already. And at the time in Nigeria, that role wasn't recognized, right? There weren't a lot of platforms to promote the knowledge, the skills, the expertise required by BAs, by business analysts, right? So we had the very first conference, Business Analyst Conference in Africa, 2011, November 2011, I believe. And I was privileged to be the facilitator or the anchor, as it's called, for 2 days. We had representation from both private sector and public sector. And after the conference, we had more questions than answers from people.
Right.
The conference rather raised a lot of questions about. We had a speaker that spoke about this. You spoke about that. You spoke about that. How do we actually build these competencies? How do we, get this kind of expertise that you folks have spoken about? How do we deliver the kind of value you folks spoke about business analysis being able to deliver? How do we get that? So it was on the basis of those questions that we actually started to share knowledge and expertise with people, right? And we started to actually provide services to corporate organizations, telcos and banks and consulting companies and tech companies to say, these are the best practices. These are the ways we have applied them. They're the tools, the techniques, the processes that work, right? And that is how BNET Learning has evolved over time. In the space of 8 years, we've actually worked with both individuals and corporate organizations, not only to earn certification, which is just one small bit of the entire context, not just to earn certification, but to also build world-class skills, skills that would actually help teams become very successful in driving or enabling change in organizations.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about what it means to be a business analyst and what that space is about. We've talked about kind of the evolution of the space and the time that we've been there. So I'm curious, for someone watching this video who now has a better conception of what it means to be a business analyst, what advice do you have for them on how to potentially jumpstart their career if this is something that they're interested in getting into?
So, advice to people would always be contextual, would always depend on where you're at, right? So it's just like, on my way down to your place, Eunice, if I called you and say, hey, Eunice, I'm coming to your place, the first question is going to be, where are you at? Right. So if anybody reaches out to me to say, I want to transition into business analysis, I want to actually build a career in business analysis, the first question is, where you at in your career? What have you done?
Mm-hmm.
Education, work experience, where you at right now?
Right.
Because we can actually have, there's no silver bullet approach
Mm-hmm.
for growing or building your business analysis career.
Mm-hmm.
It's always dependent on where you are at and where you want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are also specializations and perspectives, right? So if I want to be a BA in the business strategy and consulting space,
Mm-hmm.
the kind of competencies and skills that I'll need to specialize are different from if you want to be a BA in the tech or data space.
Right.
Now, but there are some fundamentals that will never change.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The first thing to do is to actually understand where you're at,
Mm-hmm.
where you want to be at,
Mm-hmm.
and then find the right people, talk to the right people.
Okay.
Not people who just have certification.
Mm-hmm.
Exams aren't that hard to pass. But people who have established experience, proven experience,
Right.
to actually guide and urge you.
Yeah.
It's not sufficient to say, I could actually write exams to be a sailor.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean I'm a sailor.
Yeah.
Right? The same thing applies. So it's important to talk to the right people to get guidance.
Right.
But it's also very important to be certain that that transition is something that you really want.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's I tell people it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, any career change should be seen from that perspective. Not like, a short span of decision, in 3 months I'll be done and that's it. No.
Right.
It's a lifelong decision, right, that will keep impacting you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're sure you're actually looking to make that transition, first seek advice.
Mm-hmm.
Before you even make a commitment to go for training or write the exams, seek advice. That's really important. Because what would happen is that if you find the right coach, you would get to understand where to actually start.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we spoke about the misconceptions around job titles and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So there are folks who have been doing business analysis for the last 10 years of their lives, right, and actually qualify to earn the highest level of certification as a business analyst. So they probably have worked in management consulting for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But because they never had the job title business analyst, they assume, oh no, I need to go to the entry level.
Right.
That's where I need to start from. So that's why guidance or guidance is really important.
Yeah.
It's necessary to actually get the right people to hold your hands. And then the other part is to actually be able to reflect into your previous work experience and see if there are any points of relevance to business analysis in that work experience and apply going forward. Yeah. Of course, certification is important. Mm-hmm. I always use the example of having a spotlight on you. Mm-hmm. What certification does is to put spotlight on you. Mm-hmm. It doesn't help you to perform or dance.
Right.
Imagine you're on the stage, right? Certification puts the spotlight on you.
Yeah.
But now that the light is on you, what are you going to do? Are you going to dance or just stand?
Right.
Yeah. So certification is important. The journey you actually undertake to earn certification helps you build a solid knowledge base. Mm. But don't forget that knowledge is not all that organizations hire BAs for.
Right.
Right. Processes, tools, tasks, techniques, your overall expertise. Mm. How do you build all that? Mm-hmm. So it's really important to actually understand all those components altogether.
Okay, amazing. That's great advice. I'm curious, being that you've been in the space for 12 years, you've seen a lot of change since you began. What sort of expectations, or do you have any kind of foresight into what the industry might be like in the next 5 years, what the demand will be like? Do you think that BAs will be more valuable in 5 years? How do you think the job might differ from what it currently kind of mandates? What do you expect to change maybe?
Very important question, actually. It's important that we don't just look back, but we also look forward. Mm-hmm. So the very first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that BAs are going to become more relevant for the kind of transformation undertakings that businesses would need, right? So far, we've seen how the year has trended, right? We've seen a lot of never before imagined changes and disruptions, right? With that reality, businesses are in a position where you have no choice but to undergo some kind of transformation, and that is change at the highest level. That makes businesses to be more in need of business analysts across different spheres and perspectives. right? So I see that growing demand for business analysts that will actually help businesses understand where they are at in the current state and the context rather of the current state, uncover needs, opportunities, problems to be solved, how businesses explore approaches to solve problems and explore solutions. All businesses, define their journeys, right, from the current state to the future state. So I see that businesses would need more business analysts to help them think about problems, about needs, about potential solutions, right? That's one. Now the other part is that I see more business analysis adoption in areas that we have not traditionally seen business analysis adoption. Now, this is not to say that those areas or parts or value streams in businesses have not applied business analysis practices. They have, but without knowing, for the most part. Right? So I expect to see more functional BA roles defined within businesses. So that means you might have a marketing BA, you might have the HR BA, right? You might have the customer service analysts, right? You might call them different things because job titles are really not a big deal these days.
Yeah.
But I see that trend where we'll see more functional BAs defined in roles, apart from the operational day-to-day roles, right? I see businesses plugging BAs into those functional value streams to ensure that the delivery of value can be guaranteed and sustained for businesses. Of course, we again come to the space of agile. Agile is a way of actually getting results today, sustainable results quickly, experimentally, right? So I see more fusion, way more fusion than we've ever seen between the world of agile and business analysis. I see a stronger bond being built. For example, we have the most recent version of the Scrum Guide come out recently. And where before Scrum as a methodology did not really put a lot of emphasis on business goals, it now is doing that. Right? The uncovering the business goal is actually something that is natural to the world of business analysis. So I see that pattern where we'll see a stronger fusion, a better fusion between the world of agile and business analysis. Where people will no longer say, oh, we're doing agile, we don't need business analysis. Even though, we see things like that today. But I expect to hear nothing like that in the future.
They'll be going hand in hand.
Very much hand in hand, so fused together, right? And then, of course, there are other elements of data, right? I see, of course, businesses, organizations, day by day will get more interested in how to harness the power of data to, identify opportunities and problems early within the organization to deliver the best customer experience possible by just leveraging the power of data, right? To be able to build, deploy better products and solutions for customers and clients. Business analysis is definitely a major pillar that will be required in that space, right? If businesses are going to be able to fully leverage the power of data for their own success and growth, as well as for better customer experiences, they will need business analysts. They're all that, for sure. So there are lots of other things that we can go into, but so digital transformation, functional BA roles, agile, data, areas where I see the BAs playing more significant roles. The other part I probably should add lastly is, before now, there's hardly been a room for BAs at the table, at the highest tables within organizations. Right. I see that changing. I see BAs, of course, probably not called BAs, maybe called business architects or called CXOs, right? Or called whatever those titles are, having a seat at the table, at the very highest table, levels within organizations, where they are able to influence how businesses prioritize problems to be solved, right? Or opportunities to harness for themselves.
Amazing. So lastly, you've done a great job of demystifying business analysis. You've kind of touched on a lot of the misconceptions. You talked about the future market for BAs and what that's going to look like. How do people connect with you and learn more about both you and what you're doing with BNET Learning?
Yeah, so that's another good question, to be honest. I know I'm a bit, not out there intentionally, because we've got a lot of awesome work we're doing across different entities that I represent. So it's down busy, but if anyone would like to reach out to me, I think LinkedIn is probably, the easiest channel. Essentially, I'm active there. I respond to connection requests and all that. So if you'd like to have a chat, formal, informal chats, doesn't really matter. I'm available, definitely. And the BNET Learning website is also a good way to reach out. So if you reach out to the team there, because I'm not personally involved in the day-to-day of the business, but if you reach out to the team, they'll definitely connect you with me as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was a very informative video. I can already see the people who are going to end up watching this getting a lot from this conversation. And I'm excited to hear more from you in the future. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jonas. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thank you, man.